For over 15 million of you, this place must seem as familiar as your own backyard. After all, you see it 3 times a week on EastEnders. So you might think you know the square pretty well. But you'd be surprised. Because when you see this...
I thought you wanted to spend more time with him.
Yeah, I do. As his father, not as a babysitter.
What's actually going on is this. But what neither of us see is this.
Over here on Ramsey Street, it's a different story. We know we've got animals here. Now, I'm pretty keen on natural history, so I always make a point of keeping my eyes open, because Melbourne has its fair share of snakes and spiders. The director's obviously too busy to sit down, which is just as well, because this non-poisonous huntsman spider could very well give him a nasty nibble.
You look cozy? Oh, I just need some time to get used to the idea, that's all. Yeah, well, it's none of my business anyway.
You could be happy for us.
Sorry, congratulations.
This film's about the urban wildlife in London and Melbourne.
Shot on 2 different film sets on opposite sides of the globe. Tom MacDonald and Kim Valentine, who played Darren and Libby, have got just this one scene left to do before lunch. Lunch they should have had 30 minutes ago. These are Australian magpies. Their owners are one of the most beautiful and distinctive calls of any of our native birds. Which is great, except when they're in a tree right above you and you're trying to film underneath. Joe, the cameraman's worked on Neighbours since it started 14 years ago. He's been here before. Finally, one of the real-life residents of Ramsey Street takes matters into his own hands. Which worked. Sort of. Because the Maggies just flew straight around the corner to the catering truck. So when we finally did finish the scene and break for our well-earned lunch, guess who was waiting? These birds have got nothing in common with British magpies other than they are both black and white. And they'll both eat absolutely anything. Despite their rather formidable reputation, magpies are only aggressive during breeding season. Usually they're a very friendly bird, almost tame in fact.
Give it here.
Thanks, I've probably woken up the whole square.
So did you borrow this off then?
It's mine.
You what?
It's my company car.
It's not just the neighbours who have to keep an eye on their grub.
It's my first day today.
You look great.
I feel like a kid starting a new school. You know that feeling when you're excited and nervous at the same time?
Yeah.
Well, aren't you going to wish me luck?
Don't think you need it.
And cut. Okay, on to the next one, please.
Under the watchful eye of the squirrel, Gavin Richards was starting a new job too. His character, Terry Raymond, was making his first appearance on the square. The squirrel couldn't believe his luck. Someone had left their packed lunch on Arthur's bench. Surely it had to be a trap. Go on, my son, go on, don't be shy.
Okay, as soon as we can, please.
Eventually he plucked up the courage and seemed to be getting away with it. And who can blame him for eating as quickly as he could? Because it was only a matter of time before someone came past and he had to cut and run. This is the allotment, where me screen dad Arthur used to spend a lot of his spare time. But since he's moved on to the great allotment in the sky, it's been pretty quiet round here. Except for this humble dwelling. For it was this little place that got the most use last year. The allotment's a little green oasis amongst all the tarmac and concrete of the EastEnders lot. With no one else around to disturb it, this robin decided it was a great place to settle. Gardeners still tend this part of the set, and the dug earth makes it fairly easy to find worms. In the shed next door to Arthur's, she's built a nest and is raising a family. 5 noisy and very demanding chicks who need constant feeding. The moment they hear her arrive, they start screaming for food. They're not even satisfied when they get a meal that's bigger than they are. Unfortunately for these chicks, at around the same time, one of the deadliest birds of prey in the country moved onto the lot, a sparrowhawk. Sparrowhawks are the stealth bombers of the bird world. They're such brilliant flyers and so quiet that unless you're looking out for them, they're almost impossible to spot. Not that any of us would have noticed anyway, because we got a problem filming another character who was thinking of moving into the square.
Oh, hello again. Can't keep away, can you?
Oh, it looks like I'll be moving into the square soon.
Richard Driscoll, who plays the vicar, had injured his leg playing football and was having real trouble walking. Luckily, when we watched the tape back, he looked fine. He got past the camera just before his leg gave way.
Well, that wasn't bad, was it?
No.
Yeah, see, that was excruciating pain as well. Eh?
There was one British people that
Let's fit.
Ambush is the sparrowhawk's favourite method of hunting. They're just so incredibly quiet, they sneak up on you. And the same things that drew the robin to the allotment make it a good hunting ground for the larger bird. If that's the only green spot in the area, it's an obvious target. The chimney pots make a great vantage point. Strange to think that 14 years ago, these Victorian houses weren't even here.
For rehearsal, action.
Hi, just looking for you.
I've been over Ian's.
Hello, mate. How you doing? I was going to spend a bit of time with Bent today, if that's okay.
As the robin's youngsters get bigger and bigger, the mother has to put more and more effort into finding food, which means she's maybe not as vigilant as she should be. Unlike the sparrowhawk, they can spot movement miles away and judge the distance accurately and quickly.
The arches, then back into market. Okay?
Right, so I'll do that now.
Their short-rounded wings are designed for manoeuvring through densely wooded forests, but they're also perfect for flying down Wolford's narrow streets. Even if it is spotted, the sparrowhawk can outfly almost any other bird with just sheer power and skill.
the doctor said you could always put salt in your navel when you eat celery in bed.
Really nice to be out in the fresh air with all your friends and
Do you think I should go and check on Helen?
Oh, no, she'll be fine. She's just a bit tired out from all the excitement.
Yeah, well, it was good of her to join us.
Come on, you lot, time to go inside.
I'm still eating. You've been hanging on that sausage for half an hour. Move it, please.
Take care.
I know a lot of you in Britain think we Aussies just stand around the barbie drinking tinnies all the time. And you're probably right. But with weather like this, you can't blame us for putting those sort of scenes in the show. However, last March, there was some unscripted drama around a barbecue set. One of the crew members setting up the next scene noticed something slithering around under the carport and immediately raised the alarm. A phone call to Melbourne Zoo put us in touch with John Burkett, an experienced snake rescuer, who luckily was able to get right over.
Do you know what species it is?
No, but it had bands across its body.
Valuable cast members were kept out of the way, but a few of the crew couldn't resist a look.
Big tiger snake, mate. A big male. So at this time of year, you don't have to worry about the place being full of babies. These guys are very, very common around Melbourne. I suppose probably 90% of the snakes that I catch are tiger snakes. I don't get much bigger than that. It's probably just out hunting, looking for a feed. He's not very happy at all. Well, he doesn't want to be here either. He's trying to bite me.
Over 3,000 people a year are bitten by snakes in Australia, but luckily only 1 or 2 cases prove fatal. It's all a matter of knowing what to do.
There's a lot of variables involved in dying from a snake bite. But generally speaking, if you do absolutely nothing, don't follow any proper first aid procedures, it might take 40 minutes, 50 minutes, depends on what you do. I mean, if you go keep on working in the garden, you know, you might be dead within 20 minutes. And keep calm, try and think about something else other than dying. There we go. Oh, geez.
Very aggressive, this marker.
No, I mean, he's being defensive, not defensive. There we go, so he's all calm now.
Is he? Can we have a look now?
If you want to have a look, yeah. Yep, he's all calmed down now that I've let him go.
Okay, God, he's pretty, isn't he?
Just don't touch the bag, because he can bite through the bag.
Make a good bill.
It's a really pretty colour.
Yeah. A handsome boy.
John takes the snakes well away from the city, then releases them where they can get on with their own business.
Well, it's not the sort of thing you want on set, is it?
No.
But what's a tiger snake doing in someone's backyard in the first place? Well, generally, they're looking for something to eat. Ramsey Street residents regularly put out food to attract birds to their gardens, but they often get more than they bargain for. Like almost every other country man has visited, we have house mice. And Australian house mice, like all other house mice, are always on the lookout for a free meal. And once you've got small mammals about, you're bound to attract snakes. Especially if, like Evansborough, you're on the outskirts of the city. There's 100 species of snakes in Australia, but the tiger snake is probably the most poisonous. Good job we don't see them that often. They're said to contain enough venom at any one time to kill 118 sheep. I shudder to think how they work that one out. Living at ground level and in low vegetation, they're active both day and night. They live on frogs, lizards, and small mammals which they swallow whole. The tiger snake tastes the air with its sensitive tongue, and once it's got the scent of prey, it locks in. Once the tiger snake's got this close, the mouse has no chance.
This is where the Jacksons used to live. But since they had to leave the square for their own protection, number 25 has stood empty. Empty, that is, apart from a couple of squatters who decided to spend the winter hibernating here.
None of us would even have known about them if we hadn't been filming an emotional scene with Joe and Sarah right in front of that window.
Action!
You know, I should have come round last night, but I was just so upset. You know, it wasn't that I wanted to go. Nothing like that. It's just that I'd geared myself up for it, and then all of a sudden...
How about this morning? How you feeling, mate?
Well, I am missing him. Dad, but if I was over there, I'd be missing you more. Yeah, that was really intimate and nice. That felt good. Turn me on.
Thanks, everyone.
It was one of the extras who first spotted the squatters. Unfortunately for the butterflies, during their long winter sleep, the Jacksons had moved out, leaving the house all shut up. So now the insects were trapped inside and in a serious spot of bother. But thankfully the extra took pity on them, and in between takes, wandered across to help. He forced the window open a couple of inches and gave them their freedom. Though a few lingered to enjoy the spring sunshine, most had other things on their mind, like getting a good meal inside them. For that, they need to find the right sort of plants, which means leaving the square.
Yeah, so stay further back, I think. That's it.
Luckily, our butterflies didn't have to travel very far. In fact, just down the road to the allotment. Because episodes of the show are recorded about 6 weeks in advance, a team of gardeners have to bring on plants and flowers early to match the time the show goes out. So the allotment is a pretty attractive proposition to wildlife. Now, peacock butterflies always lay their eggs on nettles. The stinging hairs don't affect the peacocks, but they do discourage any other animals that might think about snacking on them. The young caterpillars live together in a mass of spun silk while they chomp their way through all the leaves they possibly can.
It may have been spring in Britain, but over here in Australia, we were bang in the middle of autumn. It was around this time that the Wilkinson's dog started behaving strangely. There was obviously something untoward in the mailbox of number 30. A redback spider. This is a tiny but infamous member of the black widow family, and she's guarding her brood. These silken egg sacs are only a couple of centimeters in diameter, but each contains between 50 and 200 tiny spider eggs. When they hatch, these sacs will act as a protective nursery until they're ready to emerge. Unfortunately, when Bonnie was poking her nose in, she dislodged one, so the damage must now be repaired. First, she attaches a couple of new anchor straps onto the edge of it, and she hauls it back up into position. In fact, she's constantly adjusting them, moving them out of drafts and regulating the temperature. Despite their fearsome reputation, redback spiders are actually incredibly good mothers. She'll guard these eggs with her life. Finally, the spiderlings emerge. Dozens of the little rascals. And each one of these tiny creatures, less than 1 millimeter long, is already venomous. But you've got to remember that spiders don't go out to bite people, even this lot. Still, Caitlin had had a pretty close call.
Stop, please. Stand by.
Anyway, that is the midnight bird signing off.
Yeah, I needed that.
Okay, as soon as we can, please. And action.
Right, it's the last one on the film, so you've really got to go for it, right? I think that makes you feel really good.
For what?
What do you think? Oh, that's beautiful.
Right, I better get out of this club before Phil gets back.
Ricky, there's been something I've been meaning to ask you.
What's that?
What do you reckon about an holiday?
Oh, yeah, like we can really afford that.
Oh, don't be so negative. I'm going down the building society.
No.
Anne, thank you.
Just imagine Paris.
It's summer, and our caterpillars are now 5 times the size that they were, but are still eating for all they're worth. But they've just about got all the nutrients they need now, so it's time for a change. Literally. One after the other, the caterpillars leave the nettle patch when they're ready to turn into a chrysalis. These caterpillars need to relocate.
Let's round the corner to Tony and Simon, supported 1A. Thank you.
Yeah, that one. You want that one?
Up until now, the EastEnders set has been pretty good to these little creatures. But now they need to find something the allotment can't provide. Trees. For that, they'll have to search further afield. But it's not easy searching for something when your eyesight is so poor, and all you can see is light and shade. You can end up blundering about all over the place. What they do know is they need to go up. The caterpillar will liquidize into a sort of insect soup before it emerges as a butterfly. It's like science fiction. But what about the bigger animals?
Right then, once again.
Well, you've got to remember that when we're filming EastEnders, there's loads of us.
Oh, what about muscle gear?
We've got over 30 main cast members and about the same number of crew. And lots of supporting artists to make the place look really busy. With the noise all of us make, no animal in its right mind is going to walk under our noses. But there are larger animals here, you know. You just have to be on set before we are. I heard rumours that people had seen a fox wandering about in the early hours, and there it was strolling up Bridge Street. I could barely believe it. Despite what some people tell you, foxes don't spend all their time rummaging through dustbins, but Kath left some pretty choice pickings outside her calf, so who could blame the fox for being tempted? Although foxes are usually seen alone, they do actually live in family groups, so we thought it would be worth our while following this little fella home. And we're certainly glad we did. Vixens often make dens underneath garden sheds. It's pretty cramped down there, and it can get a bit smelly. So although the cubs spend most of their time underground, when the weather's good, they take the opportunity to stretch their legs. It also gives them a chance to practice hunting. Their mother stays with them for much of the time, while Dad brings them all the food back. The cubs will probably be around till August, but after that, some of them will be off on their own. So we may not see them next year, but Mum and Dad will certainly be about.
We know that part of the appeal of Neighbours is the sunshine.
Hello?
But Melbourne actually gets more than its fair share of rain.
You just keep going till Briscoe's cut.
4 seasons in one day, the locals say. And we're always having to change our plans because of it. It doesn't seem to bother the animals, though. Certainly the birds make the most of it, even if they do end up looking a bit bedraggled. In such a dry country, they're lucky to have this much water. So it's ironic that when we filmed the one story last year that actually needed rain, we had to bring our own. But one thing about the rain, that once it's stopped, it brings out plenty of food for this fella. The laughing kookaburra is the largest member of the kingfisher family and probably our most famous bird. They're not particularly selective feeders. They'll eat frogs, lizards, insects and crayfish, but they're particularly partial to a snake or two. But the one that wandered onto the set must have been a youngster or a bit short-sighted, because it didn't seem to have the art of snake hunting quite sorted out.
Okay, stand by for a look, thanks, folks. Just coming through here, guys. Yes, indeed, yeah. Coming in between.
Are you queuing in?
Yeah. Okay, here we go, and action.
So what else do you want to do today?
Well, I don't know, it's your weekend. What would you like to do?
Oh, anything as long as it's with you.
Oh, you're so easily
I know, it's
pleased.
pathetic, isn't it?
Now, it may look as though we have all the interesting animals, but kookaburras and snakes are really no big deal to us. But if we saw a squirrel or a hedgehog on this set, that really would be something. All depends what you're used to, I suppose. For instance, there's a brush-tailed possum lives up there in the Wilkinson's roof. To some people, they're cute. To others, they're nothing more than a nuisance.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Will.
Unlike Albert Square, Ramsey Street isn't a set. We just borrow the street a couple of times a week from the people who really live there. At least we ask, unlike some. The brush-tail has got so used to us filming here in Ramsey Street that she often comes out for a look-see. But like any tourist onlooker, once she's seen the same scene a couple of times, she generally disappears over the roof into the back garden for some grub.
Girls, I'm not trying to get you interested because I knew that you would love it. Come on, you have to admit that you had a good time.
That is not the point, and you know it.
The brush-tailed possum has learned to live in roofs and move out at night to nibble the tender roses and citrus leaves in suburban gardens, which is another reason why some householders look upon them as nothing more than a pest. They seem to have adapted to the city. It's hard to believe they're supposed to be a timid forest animal until you see something spook them. When one of the neighborhood dogs barked, it showed its true climbing skills and took off up a tree at a great rate of knots. Don't you go putting that sheep... Oh, that sheep... It's a bird in a cage. Tony, don't you go putting that bird in my car.
Well, it's in a cage.
I don't care if it's in a jewel-studded sarcophagus. It is not going in my car.
Luke, I've got to win this competition, and livestock is worth 200 points.
That's not livestock, that's a collage.
Nice one, Peter. You really pick your moments, don't you?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Excellent. Great. Yeah. Saved from the barbie.
Have a replay.
You know, here in Melbourne, we're very lucky to have many different species of beautiful birds all around us. But there's one problem. Because we've taken away a lot of their natural habitat and food, they quite often have to rely on us to supply alternatives, which is fine by me. I love it when they visit my garden. Like most other birds at this time of the year, these eastern rosellas are raising a family. These birds feed their chicks together. Well, this bloke's decided it's far more important for him to sit outside and survey the territory. You see, there's another nesting pair nearby, and he doesn't want his next-door neighbour coming over, pinching his grub or bothering his kids. So, the poor wife is left to do all the feeding by herself. She spends about 45 minutes collecting seeds, which she chews up and semi-digests. Then she regurgitates this porridge mixture into the beak of whoever's pushiest. There's 7 of them crammed into this tiny space. So although it's only about 25 degrees outside, it's getting a bit hot. Especially now they're starting to grow their feathers. And like all chicks, the only cooling system they've got available is heavy breathing, not exactly air conditioning. These chicks are only 2 weeks old, but it'll be another couple of weeks before they leave the nest.
Although Albert Square is the most famous part of the EastEnders set, most of the action actually takes place around the corner, in the market, the cafe, and the first till last shop.
I'm right at the very end for reaction at the end of the scene.
I did it just
yeah.
work. Let's start doing about the smell.
Run to record, please. Here we go.
Sonia, look, it's him. Oh, yeah. Oh, he's so gorgeous, I'm going to die, I just know it. Oh, this is your chance.
What?
Go over and talk to him. He's got all his mates around him.
what?
It's embarrassing.
And spare a bit of that on.
Sonia, come on, stop it. Oh, look what you've done. Blake's going to kill me.
One more. One more. Don't worry about the stop record. What was the last shot you was on before you came in?
And me.
Okay, for rehearsal, please. What's this? Get back. Love poetry. I'm sure.
On the set, we try to make sure that everything's as real as possible. Real beer in the pub, real fruit and veg on the stalls, real papers outside the shop, and real groceries on the shelves inside. So that means real animals. This is the night shift. House mice. They live, as all the best mice do, behind the skirting boards. But when they get hungry, the shop is their hunting ground. They get their noses into absolutely everything. Unfortunately, most of the food is on the shelves above them. Our lighting cables seem to have been adopted as a handy ladder up onto the next shelf. Although these sweets are real enough, they've been on the shelves there for a pretty long time, so I wouldn't eat them. But the mice seem to do well enough.
Here we go, for rehearsal and action.
Mark, you coming to the residence meeting tonight?
No, I doubt it.
Ian?
Not really, Mum, no.
Ian? Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Ian? You got a minute?
No, not really, Mum. I'm just coming
Ian?
Thank you very much, sir, recording
I
people.
saw
Once again, congratulations. Thank you.
Did you see that happen? The door shut on me whilst I was drinking my coffee and it went everywhere.
Typical.
Well, we went up my nose and all.
Of course, not all of Neighbours is shot on Ramsay Street. Every so often we get to go somewhere else for a change. Like with this storyline. It features Harold Bishop deciding to join the Scouts.
Okay, carry on, thank you. And action.
Now, pay attention here, because this man is responsible for the...
We're waiting for you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Wombats.
Okay.
It might have been a scenic location, but unfortunately for Joe the cameraman, he picked the very worst spot.
We are in the worst spot.
Bull ants. Their reputation for running after people and jumping up at them might be slightly exaggerated, but they've got a strong pair of mandibles and a very nasty bite, especially when they shoot up your trouser leg.
You don't really get the big ones in swarms, do you, though? No. They're all loners. I think they hate everything, even each other. So.
All right, thanks, team. Shooting.
With colonies consisting of up to 1,000 individuals in any one spot, it's a good job nobody provoked them.
And Danny will now prove it for us. Well, at least they're not the big ones, so...
We just had to hope that putting a tarp down would mask their scent trail long enough to carry on filming. It just about worked. But the ants don't have it all their own way. This weird-looking beast is an echidna, and there's nothing quite like an echidna. For one thing, it lays eggs, it's got a beak, it's got a tongue that's over a foot long, it can apparently live without water. It's a sort of half mammal, half reptile. It's the most widespread native mammal we've got, yet it's also the most mysterious. The echidna uses its sensitive nose to search out ant and termite nests, and using its long, sticky tongue to draw the insects into its mouth, it crushes them between two horny pads. When an echidna's disturbed, it curls up like a heavyweight hedgehog. That is, unless the ground's soft enough to dig itself in, then it goes down like a sinking ship. In this position, the echidna is almost indestructible. Brooke Satchwell, who plays Anne, has an echidna in her back garden.
This is actually the first echidna we've seen at this new house. Actually, we have to watch the dogs with this one because at our old house there was an echidna once. I was at home doing homework and I could hear the dogs going absolutely berserk. So I went out there and there was a poor echidna like right up against the edge of the house, burrowing, trying to get away from the dogs. I think most of the echidnas seem to like this sort of leaf litter sort of stuff. They find a lot of ants and things. And that's what they sort of like to eat the most. Really strong little animals. Go straight down, like digging. And it's quite relaxed.
When I said at the beginning that none of us had ever seen animals on the set, that wasn't exactly right, because unbeknown to me, a few of the cast and crew had adopted these two prickly characters. As the weather got colder, this male and female hedgehog had moved into the loos to take advantage of the radiator in there. And who can blame them?
Right, be myself.
Night shoots in winter are always a bit tough for everyone. And even if it's not freezing, you do a lot of standing around and it can get pretty cold.
We had dramas at the rehearsal tonight. You not joining them for a drink?
No, I changed my mind.
Well, how about offering a girl a coffee then?
No offence, Mary, but I just want to be on my own.
Tough.
I'm cut, that's great. Thank you, stop recording, please.
As usual, I was one of the last to hear about the hedgehog. And it wasn't until it was my turn to shoot a night scene that I got my first glimpse of them out and about on the set. Although they ought to be hibernating at this time of the year, that warm loo and the soft ground in the square kept them up and busy searching for worms. In fact, over the months, they actually became a sort of a mascot. Okay, so they may not be as dramatic as the echidna, but we've become pretty fond of them. Rumour has it they were nicknamed Ange and Den and that Pat was nipping off to feed them in between takes. All winter they stayed with us. They've gone now. Moved on to somewhere else with more worms, I suppose. But hopefully, we'll have some more this winter.
I suppose when you think about it, maybe it's not that surprising that there are other creatures besides herself that use the square. There's plenty of shelter, discarded fruit and veg, scraps from the caff, the place to themselves. I think the next time I set up my stall, I'll look upon this place in a different light. As for myself, I'm going to get off home and let the animals come out to play.
Well, they've eyes like hawks and also love the soaps. Teleaddicts next here on BBC One, while in 5 minutes on BBC Two, Battlestar Galactica.